Hello and welcome to the Locker Room to Ballroom podcast. My name is Ryan Blake. I'm the founder and director of Ryan Blake Performance Coaching, as well as the host of this show. The mission of this is to empower high-performing sports industry executives and directors to elevate their leadership through enhanced mindset, well-being and lifestyle solutions, helping minimize stress and maximize fulfillment to reach peak performance by leveraging the insights, experiences and strategies of real-world professionals. The vision of this is to become a go-to resource for sports industry leaders, providing actionable strategies to overcome challenges and solve problems without sacrificing personal priorities. Aiming to cultivate a community of sports executives and directors who can effectively bridge the gap between sports and business leadership, ultimately living better to lead better. In this episode, I'm speaking with Gwyn Page, who is currently the Director of Sport at St Paul's Junior School in London. We discuss what leadership means to him, the best example of leadership he's come across, what he considers the cost of bad leadership to be, what parts does he consider mindset, well-being and lifestyle to play in leadership and why, what's his key piece of takeaway advice to make someone a better leader in the sports industry, and much more. Really enjoyed recording this episode with Gwyn, so thank you very much to him for his time. Right, let's get started. Gwyn, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you on. Please, can you start by telling the listeners a little bit more about your professional background and experience, please?
Absolutely, Ryan. Thank you so much for having me on. So I started life as a headhunter, believe it or not, back in the day. Finished university, having played sport throughout school, university, and was trying to do kind of a career alongside it, and realised actually my passion was sport, and I was probably lost in the city and kind of working headhunting. And a family friend basically had a kid who was playing at London Welsh. He said, "Oh, why don't you come down and run a session and just give the boys some of your tips from when you played?" And so I went down and did a session there, and loved it. And a few of the mums and dads after said, "Oh, the boys have loved it. You should really look at teaching. You're a natural at it." And I'd never even thought about teaching, and then thought, why not give it a go? Because I love that far more than I've enjoyed my time in the office. And from there, kind of taught in a prep school in Battersea, did my teacher training at Buckingham, came into teaching, absolutely loved it, did geography and sport, and then landed a job at the old College Court, which is now St Paul's Juniors, and have done kind of a whole wealth of different jobs within the school. And I found myself now, after having a little stint on the leadership team doing some head of year stuff, have now found myself where I feel in a full state of flow in director of sport at the junior school, and kind of work alongside a brilliant team to just try and foster a love of sport and kind of a love of healthy lifestyles amongst the young kids before they move on to the senior school where sport's taken even more seriously. So that's kind of how I've got to where I am now.
Awesome. Well, thanks for that intro. I always love starting with that question just to kind of give people a bit of context. So, leadership, what does that mean to you?
Good question. And Ryan, to be honest, mate, when you sent me through the questions you're going to ask me, this is something I've been thinking about, and I think I'm not wrong in saying we probably sat having lunch about 4 or 5 years ago, and maybe even shorter time frame ago. And I remember you saying to me, leaders make others feel important and managers make themselves feel important. And it's something that's really stuck with me. And I think to be a great leader, I've written a few things down here, but for me, it's about bigging the guys up around you and making everybody feel their importance, and making sure that whoever you come into contact with, whether it's somebody you work really closely with or somebody who's a fleeting kind of visitor within your department, they need to know the culture and know what you stand for. And they also need to be appreciated for the things they're bringing. Mm-hmm. And it's something which I think is super important, is being really authentic to yourself. So not trying to be something that you're not. So irrespective of your kind of mood or the way you wake up in the morning, they're seeing the same version of you, which is your best self, and they know exactly what you stand for. And I think if you're able to do that, then the guys in your team the people who work alongside you, whether that's ground staff, the caterers, whether it's the kind of teachers in your PE team or the academic staff coming in to help with games. They know what the vision is and what you expect because you deliver it day in, day out. But also, more importantly, that you've recognised them for what they've done and their small wins, and you've made sure
Mhm.
they're celebrated by the people beyond yourself to kind of really recognise what they've achieved. And I think once you've kind of got to grips with that as a kind of metric of leadership, I think it's also about learning and never being afraid to learn from everyone in your team and not to allow your ego to take over. I think people who talk, and say this is my title or whatever, before they've said their name, they're getting it wrong because it's about the status of the title rather than the job. And I think for me, if you go into it with your eyes wide open, that actually you don't know everything. In fact, you probably know far less than the collective sum of everybody in your team, and you're happy to learn from the people around you and to keep on picking little nuggets here and there. That's when you've got a real strong leadership culture because you're all leaders within a team, not just one person with a title next to their name.
Sure thing. Yeah, that's a great answer, and there's a lot of things you've alluded to there that I can really relate to. And coincidentally, I've had a conversation with a few people lately about how people introduce themselves and when they've never met before, and they'll either say one or two things. They'll either say what they do, so their title, or they'll say who they are, and that always gives me free information when I speak to people because it puts things very quickly into perspective about where things sit in that context. So thanks for that. That's a great start. So can you give us some examples of the best leadership you've come across in your life? Not necessarily in your current role, it can be, but possibly in other roles or other experiences you've had.
Yeah, so I think it kind of speaks to that what great leadership is. I think if you want to be a great leader, then hopefully the definition of leadership is something that you're kind of
Hmm.
aspiring towards achieving.
Yeah.
And I think in the time I've worked in like various different roles and different things, and I've played in teams where I've had coaches or captains. I think there's certain strands which run through all of your top leaders, the people who stick in my mind as being outstanding leaders and driving cultures, which are just like next to nothing I can think of, are the guys who have not been afraid to have those really honest conversations and they don't shy away from them. I never forget when I first joined the leadership team at the junior school, sitting in meetings, kind of really hesitant to say things. And some people might think, well, that's terrible. That's kind of like a dictatorship almost. But actually, what I learned through time is how kind of empowering and brilliant Maxine Shaw was as a leader, as the head, because what she made me appreciate was the the value of your words and when you choose to speak, and also the power of silence, and making sure if you were going to say something, it was really necessary, and it was
Hmm.
also something that you had really celebrated and thought about beforehand. I think there's a danger, isn't there, if you give too many people an airtime to speak and to say different things, that actually that no one makes any decisions, and we kind of you know go along and no decisions and no change is happening. Whereas I think when people are really made to think about what they say and think about what they want to implement, better things happen. Um, I think as well, if I think about a brilliant leader I've worked for as well, a guy called Mike Weeks, who now founded a company called Gym Runners, doing amazing things all around the world for child's kind of physical literacy and assessment on that. He was formerly director of sport doing the role I'm doing now, and he's someone I kind of really look up to as a brilliant, brilliant role model for this job. But he was very, very clear in terms of what his expectations were. There
Hmm.
was always why to back it up. So it wasn't just like, I want you to do this. The kids have to wear a certain kit and you have to put your kit here or leave the sheds in this way. There was always a why. And the why was always to better the kids and to improve the department as a whole. And to elevate the status of sport and PE in an academic school, which is really crucial.
Hmm.
Um, and I think the thing which kind of the strand which runs through between Mike and Maxine as great leaders is they knew exactly what they stood for, and they were proud of what they stood for, and they knew their value set, and they wanted people to be inspired to follow their lead by doing the best they could day in, day out. Um, and I think, to go to someone more well known that everyone will talk about and know, I guess Sam Warburton, is someone I've always aspired to and watch. I think his discipline to just be relentless in his pursuit of excellence, um, for me is an aspirational person to follow in terms of leadership, because I think if you as a leader can show that resolute determination to do what is best every single day, you inspire the people working alongside you to do the same thing. I think if you're asking a team of people to deliver something but not doing it yourself, I'm not sure you have the same level of respect or kind of following as maybe you could. And I think Stan Warburton's commitment to that, and also his desire to always achieve beyond what probably expectations would suggest were possible.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's probably that's why Wales got to where they got to under him, and I haven't got there since.
Yeah,
But yeah, there's probably three people that I look to as like kind of great leadership. They embody the culture they talk about. Um, and I think if you were in any of their organizations at the time when they were at the top of them, I think you'd probably feel their value set through how they operated.
sure thing. Thanks for sharing that. That's a really interesting insight, and it's made me realize that it's really easy to remember the good leaders, but it's even easier to forget the bad ones because they don't tend to stick in your mind as much, do they? And I always personally find that there's just like a less of an emotive connection with them as well.
Yeah, yeah,
And like good leaders make things easy.
yeah,
Good leaders connect the dots, and good things like energy. Good leaders that energize you to kind of be part of the bigger picture or the why, like you alluded to.
yeah,
Whereas bad leaders tend to do the opposite. They almost make you feel worse and create this negative energy and push you away from what it is that you're all trying to achieve, usually because of their own agenda.
yeah.
So it's really interesting to hear that. So let's just flip this on its head a bit then. And I've already kind of set the scene slightly. What, in your opinion, is the cost of bad leadership?
I think it's interesting, right? Because sport is a I would say a pretty unrivaled space to see the impact of bad leadership. Because
Yeah.
if you have a great leader at the top, be it a coach, a director of sport, an S&C coach potentially who's driving a certain culture or standard, you see that you get the best out of the team, and results improve, which is one way of, I guess, having a real metric to see the impact. But beyond that, I think the emotive connection, the cohesion, the unity of a team is improved by the leader. And it's amazing to see when the leader's not doing his job properly and or her job properly, and the focus is on the I rather than the we. That cohesion, that unity, which is so powerful when it comes together, is completely lost. And I think I was having a discussion recently about desks in an office. And for me, everybody, whatever level of the team you're in, should have the same thing, because you're all actually aspiring towards the same thing. It's like the whole guy who's cleaning NASA. He's cleaning
Mm.
it, he's sending the ship to space, right? He's
Yeah.
as important as the guy who's flying that thing, because without him, the thing can't take off. And so I think really good leaders make that cohesion and the unity a powerful tool. I think bad leaders lose the motivation. They maybe don't pull on the strengths of their team, and they lose the power that unity can bring together. And I think you only need to lose one person in your team, and you've lost the whole dressing room, because that one person can come pretty toxic within the group and really kind of impact it. So it's hard work. You got to keep working at it daily to keep everyone,
Mm.
listened to, valued, feeling as though their importance is as important as anybody else on the team. If not on the day, they've got to feel like, top dog, because the minute you've lost them, you've lost that cohesion, you've lost the
Mm.
unity, and then you lose the power of that team spirit.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and I can completely relate to some of those things you said, particularly that sentence about the I and the we and the I. It's really it's a very simple way of putting it, but it's such a powerful statement. I've been in so many environments in my experience and find that the best ones you can see, you can hear, you can feel when you walk into them. And the people, the leaders in those environments can see, hear, and feel things before anyone else does. And then on the flip side, the bad environments, it's almost the opposite. They almost can't see, hear, and feel anything. Or other people they're trying to lead see, hear, and feel it first, which in my opinion is like a bit of backwards leadership.
On that, I think, and it's linked to what you're saying now. I think the key thing is to be able to listen and almost do more listening than talking. And I think
Yeah,
if you're listening more than you're talking, you're probably going to overcome bad leadership and fall into the good category of leadership because,
yeah,
you know, that's probably the, the 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 metric to success is to listen.
yeah, sure. And we've got two ears and one mouth for a reason, so there's always there's a huge clue there. And the best leaders I've come across is that your dog?
It's a dog bit,
Yeah,
sure.
that's okay, no problem.
Yeah, that bit might have to be
That's
edited.
that's fine. Don't worry. I
Sure.
think it's always nice to have an extra guest on the show. Um,
Uh,
yeah. So I was just saying that again, coming back to the examples of good leaders I've come across, they what they say is always listened to, and sometimes they can create more of an impact by not saying anything at all, and it carries a lot of weight. And I suppose it leads back to what you were saying earlier about
yeah.
the value of your words and getting that timing right. And I think with experience, you know when to speak up and when not to. But the best coaches I've had, the best leaders I've worked with have been very powerful. Their words and their tones and their body language have really carried a lot of weight when other people's are a bit empty.
One of the best people I've had the privilege of working alongside is a guy called Warren Abrams, who came in
Mm.
to do some coaching sessions. And I think one thing he was massive on is love and showing love through positive communication. And actually, what I took from a lot of the conversations he did in the seminar and the practical sessions as well was actually if you're leading a group of children, especially in sport, but you can apply this to anything, whether it's an organization, a sports team, you can convey what you want to say
Mm.
positively. 9 times out of 10, the conversation you want to have, you can have in a positive way. So whether that's they've made a mistake, there's still something positive you can find. And I think we've all had those moments where there's people in your team and they're grating because they're not on board with whatever you're trying to do. And the easy thing to do is to go straight in and to say you're not doing this, and I've asked you 5 times, but they will be doing something. They will be doing something that you want them to do, and to actually take the Warren Abrams approach and to pump them up with love and to make them feel actually I'm so grateful that they were wearing the kit, right? They might have come in wearing the kit. You wanted them to do that, pump them up for it, make them feel that you're seeing the good things in them.
Yeah,
Um yeah, I think that kind of using your words wisely could also be kind of, I guess, even more double down to use your words wisely and positively because people want to hear the positive stuff, but we're so bad at sharing it. How many
yeah,
times you can email, that yet again the change rooms have got mud in them or something like that, but they never say thanks so much for taking 16 fixtures out, and that's
yeah,
because people are busy. So and they're getting this,
yeah,
but if you can find the time to send the thank yous and
yeah.
to celebrate in a positive way, things are gonna be boosted.
100%. Like words are such a powerful thing, and the way in which they're used can sink or swim in an environment. It's funny you should mention love. I've recently just been speaking to an athletic director of a huge university in America, and we were talking about what really is the thing that connects leadership or makes leadership work in sport, and he said that it's love. And for an example, being a coach and just going above and beyond the playing field and the gym, like just doing things outside of those environments or outside of those expectations, just to make those athletes feel loved and
Yeah,
just to help them with things that they need help with that they might not be able to get anywhere else. And it's got nothing to do with the sport, but it's got a lot to do with the person.
yeah,
And that for me really kind of like made a lot of sense and really hit home. And I think leaders that do go above and beyond and do things like that. I mean, it's not always feasible or logistically possible to do that, but when it is, it can make a huge impact on the person on the other end, on the receiving end of it.
And I think, you said knowing the person. I think your best leaders will actively want to dig deeper and get under the skin and to know you as a person, to know about
Yeah,
your family, to know about your kids, to know about your wife, your illnesses, everything.
yeah,
Because actually, then when you've come across those challenges or they're coming across challenges, it's like a problem halved. You're doing it together, and it's tiring. There's no kind of shying away from the impact and toll that has on
yeah,
you as a leader. But actually, it's so powerful and so important because if you don't know what your guys are going through in your team, or I'd extend it to players in your team. If you don't know what they're living through, and you're shouting them on a Saturday morning because they're missing tackles, you have no idea what they woke up to in the morning or what they had the night before. And if you do, suddenly that's a powerful tool to be able to
yeah,
motivate.
yeah,
So
exactly. And the other thing which I find good leaders seem to be able to get out of people very quickly is free information, just very, very cleverly, and not in a sneaky way, or but just a very uh, connective way, and just like little bits of information here and there, or noticing changes about the way that you're, speaking, behaving, interacting with others. Like that's where the magic starts to happen because they know without anyone else necessarily knowing, and just like little words here and there or little actions here and there can completely change someone's demeanor or mood. Just picking up on those cues.
And I think it kind of goes back to your first question on what is great leadership, what is leadership.
Yeah.
I think you have to work for a period of time to earn the respect and trust that people feel that they can do that with you, and they're not going to
Hmm.
be judged, or it's going to be impactful to their,
Yeah.
work relationship with you. I think, and that obviously takes time, and it takes a consistency of approach and a consistency of response. But I think it's for me that's what I aspire to do as a leader, right? Is to make sure that irrespective of your relationship with me professionally or personally, I'm consistent, I'm fair, and I'm here for you. And I think if you have that trust and people know, irrespective of what's
Mm.
going on, I can speak to Gwyn. I mean,
Yeah.
if I was dying tomorrow and someone said, yeah, that's how they described you, that's the way I'd want to go.
Yeah, sure. People don't care about how much you know until they know about how much you care, right?
Yeah.
It's a phrase that's just thrown around a little bit empty, in empty ways these days, but it's one of my favorite, and it's so true. And I learned the hard way with that as an athlete and as a coach, and starting to invest a little bit more time in the present, rather than try and rush towards the future can make a massive difference. So, as we've discussed recently, the kind of the three pillars of I help leaders improve our mindset, our well-being, and lifestyle. So, I just wanted to just dig into each one of those separately with you. Why do you think the first one? Why do you think mindset is important in leadership? And have you got any kind of experiences or examples that you can give about that have influenced you?
As a leader, you got to set the weather. I think you got to get into your environment. You got to make sure that irrespective of what you're feeling or
Mhm.
what you're going through, the weather is consistently positive, I think. And I think in order to do that, your mindset has to be, I cycle to work, right? So I'm fortunate. I've got 25 minutes to get the kids out of my head, to get, the kind of stress and chaos of home life out of my head before I get into work. So when I'm in that office, I'm there for the team, and they know, boom, we're here to win the day. And what is it today? It's house swimming. Is it, cross country? Are we playing footy? Are we doing gym run stuff? And if they come into contact with that mindset daily, that actually Gwyn's here to win, Gwyn's here to make it better, Gwyn's here to have some fun. Hopefully that breeds into the room.
Yeah.
I think mindset's different to well-being. So don't, in my mind, mindset is okay. there is stuff. There's mental fog going on, but we've got to find clarity. And if we can't find clarity as leaders, the team's never going to have a
Yeah,
chance, right? We've got to give it to them. I think on well-being, I think there as a leader, you have a really important role, and it's to model what an active, healthy well-being looks like. I think if you're sat at the desk at kind of like 7 p.m. and you're getting in at 6 a.m., you're killing your team because you're not showing them what a healthy well-being is. And I think well-being for me is kind of that mental and it's the physical. And as
yeah,
working in sport, we've got to actually take that super seriously, model it
yeah,
to the kids, but also model it to our team. So, for me, I try to do something physical every day, but I'm also massive, massive with the team that family's got to come first. Because yes, what we're doing here is important, but it's so secondary and it's so insignificant in compared with your children, your wife, your home life. And I think the more I can try and reinforce that, and every opportunity I get to reinforce that, I do. So, if someone's child's ill and they're asking me, it's just like, just go. You've got to be there
mm,
for your kids. They're only little ones. And also with my own kind of well-being around that. Anyone who's got young kids will be able to tell you how stressful it is and how, your time's
yeah,
pulled from here and there and the impact it has on your professional life. But I think the more we can try and talk about that openly and to try and lift the massive lid, which is like, oh yeah, you got kids. Cool. So does everyone else. Get on with it. Or like, the kind of the old school approach to it, the more you can share the challenges of it and share that with your team, who are probably lots of them going through it too, you create a really amazing environment where you can all struggle well
yeah,
together. You can
yeah,
talk about it together. Um, so I think, yeah, mindset well-being. I think mindset, you've got to give clarity. You've got to get rid of that mental fog. You've got to keep positive because there's so much to love about what we do. There's so much to love about life if you're prepared to go find it. But then when it comes to the well-being side, let's be brutally honest. Let's talk about it. Let's not shut it down. Let's give the space to talk about it and know that actually what we're doing is great. It's really important. We've got to get these kids active. But that's never going to be important. And I'm happy to say it right here. There's my kids, my wife, my family, and it shouldn't be for anybody.
sure. Open communication and open connection are so powerful, aren't they? Especially in a team environment, and when, especially when the pressure's on, and there's a lot to get done in a little time. Just knowing that everyone's got their own challenges going on, and feeling that you can share those to a certain extent or discuss them openly, especially with whoever their leader is, it can it can change everything, and it can really help people kind of cope and manage with those kind of stressful periods. Just gain a bit more perspective, I suppose, about why they're there and
Yeah,
where they're going next. I've been in so many different environments where that hasn't been the case, and you just feel trapped, really, and
yeah,
it makes everything more difficult. And I think it's a lot harder to sustain have a positive experience in an environment like that for a long time.
yeah.
So I think it is, yeah, it's really important. How would you say, like, you've adapted or changed your lifestyle since, taking on a new role and becoming a parent? What are the key things that have you found have changed for you?
So I think having really clear boundaries with yourself has been a massive thing for me. I think I'm quite, I'm open. I'm happy to say I'm quite a proud person, and so I'd never want anyone to think, oh, Gwyn's got kids and suddenly he's cutting corners at work. So I think my the way I cycle in and set that mindset is okay. Here we go, got a day, and these are the times we've got. I'm going to be in at 7:30. I've got to leave at 5:30. In that time, I'm going to be ruthlessly efficient, and I carve out time for myself to get certain things done. I think since taking on this role as well, whilst I've set boundaries like, okay, at 6 till 8 when I'm at home and I'm with the kids, I'm not on my phone. That's time for the kids, the family. But when I'm at work, and I'm kind of not really contactable unless it's an emergency at home. So I've got those kind of clear boundaries. I think in terms of professionally, I've probably set myself really clear, achievable goals. So we've kind of constructed a 5-year plan within the junior school department. We know where we're trying to get to in those 5 years. and we know the steps we need to take to get there. So
Yeah.
it doesn't feel as though there's this like massive stress on us that we're trying to chase these things really quickly, because actually it's all kind of small steps, and it's the compound effect of how we're going to get there in 5 years. And we've shared that with some parents, we've shared that with all the teachers that work in the PE department, so everyone kind of knows. So there's no surprises. And I think one thing that Dan Stewart, the former director of sports, has said to me is always be 2 weeks ahead. So this role is like an ever evolving, ever changing beast where, you've got logistics, pitches out. If you're 2 weeks ahead, usually 9 times out of 10, you kind of find out any kind of could be problems. And I think that's been the best advice to me. You're clear with your comms with everybody 2 weeks out. All the staff know where they're going, the kids know where they're going, parents know where they're going, teams know where they're going, the buses know they're all booked. And it just means that kind of you're not chasing your tail and flying by the seat of your pants. And the processes are all kind of there to kind of work towards. I think without the processes and systems in place and that 2 weekly cycle, and without the boundaries, you'd be kind of like, you'd be fried. So anybody kind of getting into a job like this with 2 kids, I think you've got to have kind of that.
I can really relate to that. It's almost like looking forwards to have the time to look backwards. Rather than not constantly looking backwards, and you never get to look forwards, because it is really hard otherwise then to kind of gain any momentum or consistently produce anything meaningful without it being complete chaos. So that makes a lot of sense to me.
I think it's right. You've got like a 2-minute task. If you've got a 2-minute task, don't write it down, just do it. You can kill so much time making to-do lists.
Yeah, exactly. It reminds me of that phrase. I'm not sure if we spoke about it before, about planning is everything, but plans mean nothing. Which makes a lot of sense to me. So just to wrap things up, what would you say, Gwyn, your kind of takeaway piece of advice is for any leaders working in the sports industry, whether they're an exec, they're a director, they're a coach, they're a teacher, to help make them a better leader?
Don't be afraid to learn. Don't be afraid to grow. Seek support always. I think I feel really grateful that I've come into your office, asked you for advice. I can walk across the room, speak to Tom. I can speak to Luke. I can go and speak to heads of department in other areas who've got way more experience than me, but in different fields. I think there's sometimes sport is something that we all know the power of, and we're in it, but it's a bit of an echo chamber, because if you didn't grow up playing sport, if you're not sporty yourself, it's a bit of like I'm not sure I want to go there sort of vibe. And people got really bad memories of some sport as they're growing up.
Yeah.
So I think, especially to leaders within the sporting environment, don't be afraid to go outside of your comfort zone and go and learn things from other environments. I've taken so much from my time in headhunting, which, is a pretty cutthroat industry, but it's also, there are some really brilliant people working in that industry in oil and gas. They came from consulting, they came from finance. And I think taking some of those things and putting them into sport has been so helpful, because it's just a different way of thinking about the same thing, which is just motivate people and get the best out of them, right? And if we just cut down our channels of kind of support to be what we know and feel comfortable with, we're never going to really push ourselves to grow properly.
Brilliant. Thank you for your time. Really, really insightful. Lots of golden nuggets there for our listeners to take away. So much appreciated. I will put some contact details for you in the show notes, and people can get in touch with Gwyn directly if they wanted to ask him any further questions when he's got some free time, which doesn't seem to be very often these days. But Gwyn, thanks again for coming on, and I'm wishing you all the best for 2025.
Top man. Thanks so much for having me on. Feel blessed.
Thanks for listening to the episode. I hope you enjoyed the show. It would be really helpful if you please leave a rating and a review on whatever platform you're listening on. Is there someone you know who would benefit from hearing what you've just heard? Then help them out by sending a link. Be sure to check out the website www.ryanblakeperformancecoaching.com that has details about free tools which include the RBPC blog, more information about this podcast, taking the Performance Profile Online Assessment, joining the Sports Leadership online community, the Elite Impact online education course, the Elite Potential online coaching program, the Elite Influence in-person consultancy, and how to get in touch if you have any questions. Follow on social media at LinkedIn, Instagram, Threads, Facebook and YouTube. Links to these can be found at the bottom of all website pages and via any search engine. Until next time, take care.